Good afternoon and welcome to the business briefing for the month of May 2021. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. Good news is it's been another positive month for construction contract awards, with the BC Live league table once again topping the £5 billion mark. However, there is a potential fly in the ointment. With material shortages and materials prices on the rise, how long can that current positivity last? To find out, I'm about to be joined by Neil Edwards, CEO of market intelligence provider at the Builders Conference. Neil, are you coming in loud and clear?
I am indeed. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon. Good to see you as always. We will come on to that dread subject of material shortages first of all, but let's start, as we always do, with the scores on the doors. What was the big figure for the month of May?
Well, right at the end, even in the last few hours of Friday last week, it tipped over actually the £6 billion mark. So it went to £6.29 billion for the month, which is about 10% up from last month, April. So May was, £6.29 billion.
It's all looking very positive, isn't it? Who were the big winners?
The big winners was really HS2 type, or there were projects in conjunction with HS2, but the people that were awarded it were obviously some joint ventures in that case. The number one on the list is a Mace Dragados joint venture. Now, that was for the Curzon Street Birmingham railway station, the construction of a new Birmingham Curzon Street. So that was awarded to them as a JV, and that's we've been advised it's around about the £570 million mark. So yeah, great job, Birmingham, Midlands, and we've been saying about this for the last few months. Really, the Midlands is definitely a growth area for the UK.
And who was second and third? And first of all, how many of the top actually topped the £100 million mark? That's always a good indicator.
Yeah, this month it was, let me have a look. It was, I think it's 16. Yeah, 16 topped the £100 million mark. So a pretty good month. You know, we try and go above the double digits. And this month, yeah, it's 16. So yeah. And second place on the list was another HS2 associated project. And it's another joint venture. And this one's worth £455 million. And that's Twyford to Greatworth line. And the route follows the corridor of the former Great Central Railway. And it's largely hidden from view in cuttings and short lengths of embankment and low viaduct in places. So, yeah. So what we're talking about there is nearly £1 billion worth of work once again coming down to HS2.
It's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
It is, and there is definite rumblings in out there to say that 2A and other bits and pieces at the other end of the line, shall we say, from Birmingham, is going to definitely go ahead. It's not going to be stopped at just up to Birmingham. It is going to proceed on to Leeds and through the rest of the UK.
That's fantastic news. Now, obviously, we've touched on the fact that we're talking big infrastructure projects and rail projects there. How's housing doing?
Well, it still leads the way. It definitely does still lead the way. And this month, let me take the exact figure rather than... housing £2.1 billion. And that's actually... third on the BC Live table of construction projects is Morgan Sindall, and it's their housing division, Lovells, which is the largest project in their 16 that they've picked up, and that's worth £85 million, and that's a project in Newport, and it's the development called Royal Victoria Court, and it consists of high quality new places and residents to live. Consisting of 528 properties. So yeah, Lovell Partnerships have actually secured that one. Now, the two big hitters normally we talk about for the number of jobs, it's normally between Kier and Morgan Sindall. So Morgan Sindall are third with 16 projects this month. and Kia's are fourth with 18. So they've been pipped in the actual table by Morgan Sindall, but they've pipped Morgan Sindall with the most number of jobs. So they've picked up 18 this month. And the largest of theirs is an £80 million project, which is a hospital project. It's the demolition of the existing buildings at Luton and Dunstable Hospital in Luton. So that's a. Now we're trying to find out as well whether that is one of the 40 projects that the government have said about producing, obviously in their manifesto. But yeah, that's 18 projects. We normally look at them something like one a day, and actually this month is quite a short month. There is only actually 19 working days.
I was going to say we've had a bank holiday or two, so we can give them a bit of breathing space, can't we?
Exactly right. Yeah. There's 19 working days, and they picked up 18 projects, which is what we normally expect.
Who's coming up on the fourth and fifth places?
Well, the fifth place is the next one is an industrial unit, and it's the significant project there. It's for Winvic have actually picked it up. And they've picked up £293 million worth of work this month. That's a significant number. And the largest project that they've picked up is a £248 million project. And that's at Basingstoke. And it's the demolition of 3 outbuildings and related structures, and the construction of a storage and distribution warehouse, including mezzanine floor space. So another kind of, so we've been talking about obviously infrastructure. Aligned to that has obviously been housing, which has definitely been the number one over the last few months. But what we've also been talking about is hub warehouses and hub distribution centres, whether it be likes of Northampton, around Corby and places like that. But obviously this one is now further down south, which is down in Basingstoke. So yeah, they've what did I say there? It's nearly £300 million worth of work Winvic have picked up. And the other
that warehouse, just to interrupt you quickly, I went up to JCB last week, drove up the M40 and M42, and the entire journey is just littered with either existing warehousing or warehousing under construction. It's literally changing the landscape of the country, isn't it?
I think, that those kind of hub areas. I think with the pandemic, we're very much doing our shopping a different way. And that is online. So those kind of factories or industrial unit stroke warehousing is only going to become more to the fore. And Winvic and there are a couple of other are leaders in that field. So yeah, that's I think it's only going to carry on. And I think when you look at also, we've been the free ports that were mentioned in the government manifesto as well, and the recent budget back in March, I can only see more warehousing distribution hubs coming online.
Yeah, I interrupted you before before you got to number 5.
Yeah, the last one is, so if we're building all these houses, we've obviously got to have some kind of planned maintenance to them. And so the next one on the list is Mullally, and they picked up a overall £230 million worth of projects, and that's 3 during the month. The largest of which is £160 million in various locations in Lewisham, and the client for that is Lewisham Homes. Now, this is a £160 million major works refurbishment, internal and external, but it's over 10 years. So it's been picked up by them. Obviously, it's great for their order book because they've got 10 years worth of work coming forward. But yeah, if we're going to build all these homes, and especially if they're going to be social housing or RSIs or whatever we want to call them, we're going to have to maintain them as well. And obviously this is part of that as well. This project.
We will come on to look at the various sectors and the various regions in a second, but I think we do need to look at the elephant in the room. There's been lots of talk about material shortages, and the last one that I saw was Travis Perkins saying that the prices of bagged cement were rising by 15%, chipboard is up by 10%, and paint is up by 5% as of today. Now, I don't suppose for one moment that the people that are building HS2 are popping down to down to Travis Perkins for a bag of cement, but it is indicative, and it has become the key talking point of the industry. Are you actually seeing an impact from material shortages actually out among your members and among the people that you're researching?
We are there is an impact, and you just highlighted three, and that actually made the what was it, the BBC News as well, which is obviously pretty significant as well. But it's not just that. We're seeing it with mortar supplies, which has obviously got sand and cement part of that. Now, with the demand for housing increasing, and I think in all the press today, they're saying that not until 2026 are we going to see a slowdown in the housing market. We're going to be building something like, I don't know, 250,000 units a year. Most of those will need some form of mortar, cement, etc. And what we are seeing is rationing. What we are listening to is the fact that there are days when some materials are on ration. So you just can't. We've become in the industry a just-in-time delivery. The way of just it'll be there the next day. Don't worry about it. I think we've now got to be planning over the next 2-3 years a better way, because otherwise we're only going to be left in this same position. And I can go on about, we're also not looking at the facts in front of us. The facts have been there. Mark, you and I have spoken about this for 6-9 months, that the amount of work that's growing, but that's not even taking into account HS2. We must look at the data, and we must start to believe in the data. And here we are, we're talking, I think the rolling year is something like about 82 billion pounds worth of work. Now, I made a prediction a couple of months ago, I think it's going to go up to 90 billion. So that's it's a 10% increase in 2021. Are we putting 10% more materials through the manufacturing process? I don't know.
I will. There's so much to unpack with that, and we'll come on to the data in a second, because obviously that is your role in the world. But this seems so desperately short-sighted. We've said it before, and I'll say it again. HS2 didn't come out of left field. We knew it was going to happen. We knew it would need concrete and steel and all the stuff that goes with it. The demand for housing at 250,000 units a year has been the same for the last, off the top of my head, probably 5 or 10 years. So that's not come as any surprise. And the thing that makes it worse is we've now got a situation where we've got the ability to build off-site, prefabricated homes, flat packed homes, and that kind of thing. The material suppliers that are so slow to turn on the tap and make those materials available are potentially cutting their own throats, aren't they?
Yeah, because what we're talking about here is the hard material, shall we say, bricks, blocks, mortar, sand, cement, those sort of things. Whereas a prefabrication may cost slightly more in the beginning. However, the delivery of the product at the end is going to be so much quicker. So there's going to be a point in time where it is going to become cheaper to prefabricate everything, and could be more cost effective because it could be done by machinery rather than labor, shall we say. It could be automated, some of it. And that could, it could be self-fulfilling prophecy if we're not careful, because you may be making more money in the short term, but people will look for alternatives in the long term because they cannot afford to not deliver on the project. So if you've got 500 houses being built and you've got an end date of X, but because of bricks, blocks, sand, cement are all in short supply, you will really consider the prefabrication of those units. And we have always said that prefabrication is probably the way forward, because it's also, you're not outside in the elements building your so wastage is a great deal less, so therefore it's environmentally better. So yeah, it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy here.
But all of this comes back down to data, and I'll let you spout forth on this, because this is very much your baby. But we're not asking material suppliers to consult the runes or to gaze to the heavens and try and read astrology or anything like that. We're talking about just looking at the facts that you and I speak about every month. And even things like lead times. We're talking about projects today that have been awarded in the last month. Those will require materials in 20, 25 weeks time. We know that right here, right now. Just in time doesn't need to be as hit and miss as it currently is, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't really. And many manufacturers and many suppliers, product manufacturers, don't store things as much nowadays, do they? They don't have great big yards full of materials or whatever. But yeah, the facts have got to be reviewed. We have to reap what we sow, and we've sown. We're reaping we're not looking at the facts or the data, and I'm going to be critical. The construction industry as a whole, and I'm being generalized here, doesn't look at the facts or doesn't look at the data as much as it should. There are businesses that do and would be able to be agile and adapt to it, adapt to the changes and everything else. But we are still not embracing data as much as we should do. And obviously with the pandemic, we have now started to. So hopefully, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we now start to rely upon the information that we collect. And we, I don't know how many times I said we double check our information to make sure that it's verified, because nothing's worse than having some forms of information that's incorrect. And it's the same as what we got with the pandemic. We want to make sure that it's actually correct so we can take real decisions, and that's what we do on ours. So it's but it's been at this we used to say it was £4 billion a month, didn't we, Mark? We used to sit here together and say 4 billion is a good month. Then it's kind of nudged to 5, and now it's nudging to 6, and it could be 7, and that's without the abnorms of the HS2s. We still got these hospitals, and I think the government itself is really heavily invested into infrastructure, and I think it's only going to increase infrastructure spend in the short term.
The saddest thing with all of this is you and I have been doing this for more than a decade now. You slightly longer than me, and we've ridden the cycles. We've done the peaks and the troughs, and all those peaks and troughs have been beyond our own control. We've had economic downturns, we've had sentiment problems, we've had Brexit, we've had all of those things. All of those things are beyond our own control, and yet, there is a very real possibility now that the current boom as it stands today could be shortened or curtailed entirely by our own lack of foresight, which just makes it so sad, doesn't it?
It does, and we've only just been picking on a couple of items through what we've been talking. If you just take plant and machinery, I know you of a morning have your breakfast show, and quite often it's not you're talking about plant hirers are buying new machines all the time at the present moment in time, and there's also the associated amount of tools, equipment changes, maintenance just on those itself, and then you've got to have an operative to actually work those. So I really don't want to be saying this, but I fear for the fact that we will soon be discussing on here there's not enough people to do the work, and therefore we got raging inflation on labour across the construction industry.
Yeah, I mean the irony of that is with construction equipment, and I think Peter Haddock is probably watching as we speak. He was up at Ritchie Brothers auction last week, and I think the big difference between plant and materials is you have an alternative. you can quite easily, even if it's just a stopgap, you can buy used equipment, or you can change brands to a brand that maybe you wouldn't have tried normally, but they've got availability of the type of equipment that you need. You don't have that luxury with, as you say, sand and cement, bricks and blocks. You've got effectively sort of one national source of supply. I would imagine Brexit's made life a lot more difficult getting imports anyway. So you've got one source of supply. And then, as you say, that all rolls forward. One of the ironies of all of this is the fact that you and I have been talking for months and months and months, years, in fact, about skill shortages. And yet all of a sudden it's material shortages that are overshadowing that argument, aren't they?
Yeah. We talk about, I always say that, as a whole, we don't, in our schools, colleges and further education establishments, we don't put construction as a sexy industry to go into. Whereas there are great opportunities for everybody in construction, and that's both in offices as well as out on site. And it is a great world to be in. I've been in it for too many years to actually kind of talk about, and the same as yourself. It's a great industry. There's training, and you've got to do your time, shall we say, because you've got to get to that knowledge, because there is a knowledge background to it. But once you're there, it's a fantastic industry. But we don't kind of sell those thoughts, or not thoughts, but it's not even thoughts, is it? It's actual. We don't sell that enough to the chain coming through, really. We've got to get to the 10, 11 and 12-year-olds to say, yeah, no, construction is a good industry.
When it gets its act together and orders enough materials in advance. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yeah, and hopefully we'll have enough things to work with on site. So.
On to more cheery matters. How are we looking regionally? I mean, you've mentioned the fact that the Midlands has had another good month. Has it managed to catch up London, or not quite?
Not well. If you do it as a combined, because we split it down between East Midlands and West Midlands. If you do it as a combined, it's £1.75 billion, which eclipsed London. London is 1.3 billion, and a lot of that large one, obviously, is the HS2. And funny enough, only but today, 1st of June, another HS2 project has been signed off and delivered. It's something like £580 million worth of work. So already we're looking at, what am I looking at? 854 million in June already, which is on the first day of June. But yeah, if you add those two Midlands regions, so Midlands will be doing well next in June as well. It's 1.75 billion pounds. London is 1.3, and then obviously because of the Hampshire project I spoke about, which is the big hub centre down there, that's over 380 million pounds worth. And the other one to speak of is Southwest, which it is very close to £500 million. And Scotland is 202 million pounds this month. So it's maintaining its levels up there. From a slow pandemic, or coming out of the pandemic, it's now up to 202 million pounds worth of work. So yeah, no, it's a little bit more evenly spread across the UK.
That's good to see.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a little more evenly spread in terms of sectors. We've already touched on rail and housing. How are the other sectors looking?
Yeah, well, as I say, housing is way above. But yeah, we're talking offices this month are over £500 million worth of work in around the UK. Education over £400 million worth of work. Factory and industrial, £484 million worth of work. And railways over £1.1 billion worth of work. So yeah, it's but what housing still tops a lot with £2.1 billion worth of work this month.
What I find interesting with that is the fact that, I mean, we need housing, we need schools, we need rail, we need roads, and we need educational facilities. But things like offices, particularly as we've had a period of a year where a lot of those offices were sat empty, the fact that there's £500 million worth of new offices in a single month, that shows a fair degree of further positivities, doesn't it?
It does. It's confidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
What that's showing is confidence in the UK, which is fantastic. What that means is that people are whether it be pension funds or whatever, are willing to put their money into the UK. And so, yeah, confidence is, you and I both know, confidence is one of the major words in construction. It is all about confidence. And at the moment, the confidence is pretty high.
Despite the material shortages.
Yeah.
I guess leads us to the final question, really. I mean, obviously we're heading into summer, although I would imagine summer this year will be not dissimilar to summer last year. I think a lot of people probably just work through because there isn't really much of an alternative in terms of jetting off to sunnier climes. But I mean, are you still confident for the remainder of the year despite the ongoing threat of material shortages?
I am. We are. I've just looked on the actual dashboard here for our information. Today, we have already put on created new projects. So that means obviously 28 new projects today. Now, remember, we're in half term as well, so people are not always as easy to get hold of at the present moment in time. I know they're staying at home, some people, but and some people might not be going away at all. But yeah, 28 projects going and being added to our platform today is very good. We normally look at between something like 35 to 50 projects a day, but we do look at that obviously in certain times and after bank holidays and half term that may be a little bit less. But if we're talking 3 o'clock, or when I looked just before I came online, it was 28, and there was over 500 million that worked out to be of new projects. I'm pretty confident. And speaking to, I can only, speaking to the people that I speak to, they're still quite busy tendering new works. So I don't see it dropping off at the present moment in time, which is great. Fantastic. Great news.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a pretty good place to wrap things up.
Yeah,
let's call it a day there. On a positive note, I'm going to push aside my concerns about material shortages and let you get back to your day. But it's been a pleasure as always, Neil. Good to see you still so upbeat despite some of the headlines that we're seeing. As you say, the very fact that material shortages are making it onto the BBC, that is a worry. But by the sound of it, much as it did with Brexit, much as it did with the COVID pandemic, it looks like construction has just said, yeah, we'll just crack on. We'll be over here getting on with the job, which is fantastic news.
It is. I think that's exactly what they're doing. It's just saying, okay, that's fine. We'll get on with it.
Yeah. Well, let's follow that lead, and I'm going to do exactly the same. Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. I'm going to let you get back to the day job. Keep those contract awards coming in, and I shall be watching with interest to see if we top the £1 billion mark in the first couple of days, which would be awesome.
It will be.
Speak to you soon.
Good to speak to you.
Cheers. Well, there you are. Positive news. It does feel like the spectre of material shortages is hanging over us like the sword of Damocles, but the facts speak for themselves. There you go, £6.2 billion worth in a very short month, only 19 working days, £6.2 billion. So if you do nothing else today, you can sit back and just admire the construction industry's resilience, the fact that it's taking no notice whatsoever of material shortages and the threat from the news headlines, and it's just getting on with the job. That will just about do me for this show, number 2 out of 3 for the day. I'm going to go and grab myself a cup of tea because at 6 o'clock tonight, which is 2.5 hours time, I will be back here with those fine people at Bobcat to talk telescopic handlers, small articulated wheel loaders, compact loaders, and Lord alone knows what else. But in the meantime, thanks ever so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I shall see you all again very, very soon. Thanks for watching.